Randy, you went to Afghanistan? Oh my God. I'm working this deal. Maybe we could go to Mozambique together. First, before I begin the body of this induction speech, there are three people I'd like to acknowledge. One is 2000 Hall of Fame member, inductee, Don Lajoie, who I know is a proud papa today. Don, would you stand up for a moment? Please stand, Don, just to be recognized one more time. The other day, Don said to me, you're not going to ask me to make a speech. I don't have to get up and talk to you. And I said, no, this is your day, a very special day for you and your family. Two other people I'd like to recognize before I make the main part of the speech. Unfortunately, sadly, both of them are no longer with us. One is Charlie Mitchell, who is the longtime motorsports writer for the Norwalk Hour, who, if you were here today, would be as proud of this moment as Daddy Don is. The other is former WICC motorsports talk show host, Dean Mercier. Our next inductee did several of his shows, and Dean and I made many of Randy's local Busch Series races. There are seminal moments in each and every one of our lives. Some we attach joy, celebration, and smiles to. Others are met with shock, overwhelming sadness, and grief. When Randy Lajoie was 14 years old and going through what most kids his age encounter, he learned the horrifying news that his older brother, Randy, 17, had been killed in a car. Ronnie had been killed in a car accident. Ronnie had already begun a racing career in hopes of following in the footsteps of his father, Don, by 1975, a very successful Saturday night racer and champion at the Danbury Fairgrounds race arena. Ronnie had all the tools to do well in the sport, Don recalled. Ronnie, he was moving in that direction when he was killed. Randy, on the other hand, didn't appear like he wanted to be a racer. He would watch while we worked on the Danbury cars and Ronnie's go-karts. He didn't want to get his hands dirty. Following a period of mourning, 14-year-old Randy Lajoie made up his mind. I saw how good my father was, and I realized that Ronnie would have been that good or even better, Randy said. Many families go through what we did. It's always a tough thing for every family. I decided at that point I wanted to honor my brother. I decided to go headlong into racing. Of course, Don Lajoie couldn't have been happier. At 16, Randy began racing go-karts at Norwalk's Calf Pasture Beach, a facility that Don had been directly involved in organizing, along with Wilton businessman and prominent road racer Bob Sharp, also a member of this Hall of Fame. Randy went from go-karts to Danbury's new sportsman division in 1980, winning the track's title in 1981, the last year of Danbury's existence. What a stellar season it was. 22 starts, 14 victories. From there, the progression was into SK Modifieds and onto the Busch North Series and a controversial title in 1985. Then it was onto the Busch South Series, where Randy won titles in 1996 and 97 for Bache Racing. He captured 15 Busch Series wins in all and did have a brief stint in the Winston Cup Series, driving for car owners Bill Davis and Frank Ceci. He became part of racing history by becoming the first Northerner to go south and win a title. The numbers in all of these induction speeches aren't the true relevant part of the story, however. Glimpses into the true nature of the individual are found in other places. This story, more importantly, is about a racing family. In 1983, while running for the Waterford Speed Bowls SK Modified Championship, Randy ran into a roadblock. In a late season feature, father and son were running 1-2 as the laps were dwindling down. The late George Moose Hewitt, also one of our inductees this year, was running third in the pursuit of the track title. He was running in front of me, and he wasn't about to let me by, Randy remembers. I saw him flip up his mirror. The only way I could have won that title was to pass, and my dad was, and that was not going to happen. Randy reluctantly finished second, Don won, and Hewitt took the title. It was around this time that Don had to make a hard decision. My late wife Kathy said to me, "Dear, I can't split myself in half and go to both of your races." And Don made the decision at that point to retire from the sport. And he went out and bought a huge motorhome so he could proceed to all the races, all of Randy's races along the way. And as Don says today, I'm still trying to sell this thing. Maybe Randy will buy it. Other moments highlighted Randy's career. Who could ever forget the Daytona wreck? All of you have probably seen it. It's moments on YouTube. Randy and the Skillman brothers' construction car, out of control, heading perilously through the Daytona Speedway's front stretch infield. The ensuing big-time crash into the barrier, his end-over-end barrel-rolling exploits. Pretty scary stuff. Following the close of his career in 2006, Randy Lajoie turned his skills to building a business based around safety, something his father had always believed strongly in. In 1971, my dad bought a race car seat at the Hartford Auto Show, Randy remembers. It was built then and used by Mark Donahue. Donahue was a Brown University grad, an engineering student, and a damn good racer in both the Trans Am and IndyCar series. My father always has been a nonstop thinker about all things involving racing, Randy said. He's always trying to figure out how to build a better mousetrap. Well, Randy picked up on it. His company, The Joy of Seating, was formed, and he currently travels around the country to Saturday night tracks preaching safety. A funny story about his business is worth telling. Randy told me he always believed that a seat should conform to your backside, much like a helmet is fit to protect your head. Some people have told me that I used to drive at times like they were one and the same, with joy, like Randy likes to say. As Randy and his wife have moved into their later years, they are now a 3-generation family with Corey, 25-year-old Corey, driving in the Xfinity Series. Their other son, Casey, is in the announcing business. At this time, I'd like to have Lisa, Randy's wife, come forward. She has a special message for Randy and all of you.
Thank you. This message is from Corey because he really wanted to be here today, but he was unfortunately not able to get here from Phoenix and had to stay for sponsorship obligations there and couldn't make it. But he wanted Randy to know, "Hey Pop, sorry I could not make it tonight with our family and extended racing family to see you become a Hall of Famer. Although I am not there tonight, it's by all of your love lessons that you instilled in me that I'm able to do what I love and everyone in this room loves, to race. I thankfully owe the man who hammered these valuable lessons into me, who would pass them down to me, the Hall of Fame member and grandfather Don Lajoie. The numerous wins, the several NASCAR championships, and one hell of a successful driving career are the reasons why you are on stage tonight. But being a great dad is why you're Hall of Famer in my book. Love you, Pops." Corey.
It's my distinct pleasure at this time presenting to you the newest member of the 2006 New England Auto Racing Hall of Fame, Don and Kathy Lajoie's son, Mr. Randy Lajoie.
You got a battery for this thing? Might need one. Thank you, Sunshine. As you probably see that, Kenny, this ain't easy. Where'd he go? Yeah. My lovely bride, that's one of the features that, like Dwight, that was one of my best wins I've ever had, that's for sure. Growing up, I had to be 18 to start. Danbury wouldn't let you start racing until you were 18. I mean, now you can start right out of diapers. So I had to start watching racing. I mean, I had to watch Don Lajoie. He raced at Danbury for a little bit, and then he ventured to Stafford and the Yankee All-Stars. And he raced in the mid-70s in the modifieds. Really? The best time ever. And I was a kid watching Don Lajoie and Paul Valeri and Bugsy and Bouchards and Flemke and Summers, and that was the greatest time ever to be a race fan. I learned to go to the Race of Champions at Trenton, and I seen stuff I still can't believe. You can't make this stuff up. The stuff that I seen when I was a teenager. No, in the infield, outside at the Trenton. I mean, camping at Trenton for 4 days. It's just simply amazing the stuff that I seen that the racers embedded in me. And then Bob Johnson called. I think he pissed off a driver, and they needed a driver, and he got my dad, and he didn't have a uniform, and he borrowed Richie Evans' uniform, and he put it on, and he drove over Charlie Jazan back after he blew up, and he launched it out of your dad's park in turn 3. And then they started building these Speedway modifieds. So they built a funny looking Firebird and used that thing for a long time. And we resurrected it and built a cigar box. I don't know if it was in the 80s to turn it into a Bush North car. But growing up, watching racers and learning good, bad, and different. I mean, we didn't race. We had to learn it from somewhere. And I learned it from, Hall of Famers. You look at the list of drivers that are here, modified racing. And then when I was modified racing, when I was watching all this and reading Val Lucier's Speedway Scene, I was also looking at, the taxi cab stuff, looking at the Dragon Brothers and Jean-Paul Cabana and the Canadians and the North Tour. Looking at that stuff, I was like, man, I can do this. I want to do this. So after my Danbury days, after Pop went and did his NASCAR stuff or did his modified stuff, he read the rule book and he built the car by the rule book and he got his ass kicked. And then he figured out that those guys are cheating. They didn't read the same rule book that he did. So when he went back to Danbury, he read the right rule book. And then he spanked their ass. So then when he did go out everywhere else, he did run well. So there was quite a difference to say he always wanted to build a better mousetrap. So when I started racing, and when they allowed me to when I was 18, then they shut the place down. Nicky, I mean, Danbury was a wonderful racetrack. It was 8,000 people every down week at a facility. I mean, what a racetrack. Well, what a facility. What a family-orientated place. I mean, on one hand, if it was still open, I would still be there. And I probably, I wouldn't have never went anywhere else. But during that time, being Pop had a junkyard, I remember the Honings coming there and getting stuff. Bill Slater, Bobby Judkins coming down, getting stuff. So he knew a lot of the racers that would come down to the junkyard. I mean, Bobby Judkins come down and get parts to build an independent front suspension. So a lot of people he had a lot of influence with. So once I got out of modifieds, once Danbury closed, went to New London. Dick Williams was a promoter there. They had these taxi cabs show up one night. He goes, Randy, you want to drive one of these cars? Robbie Crouch's dad had a car. C.A. Crouch had a car. And Dickie Williams says, Randy, I want you to drive this guy's car. I said, okay, I don't care. I got a helmet. I'd drive anything. And drove this car. And then later on, they made a movie of the right way and the wrong way. And I drove this old car, and I had a blast for 35 laps. Well, the problem was it was 150 lap. And same thing, I mean, as the movie goes, old Robbie Crouch's dad, C.A., he was a Southern man, and he says, son, you just drove the car too fast through the corners. Really? That's what you're supposed to do. Well, it took me a long time to realize tire management. And at like the 40th lap I was done, my tongue was hanging out and the car wasn't no good. And I said, if you just fixed the car, I could have been a whole lot better. I said, okay, these cars are fun to drive for 35 laps. So I did learn a lot rather quickly on tire management. But Dickie Williams gave me that opportunity when the Northern Tour came in. Bob Johnson was there. Bob Johnson liked what he saw. And he says, hey, we got this old modified that we have a Pontiac body on that, they have this Northern Tour. Let's see if we can build this thing and go to Stafford with it. And then go to Dover. We went back to the junkyard and cut an old body off of a car out back and put it on that car. It wasn't the prettiest thing, but we raced it at Stafford and we went to Dover with it. And I think after one of the practices, the crew guys were looking for the air tank. It was in the trunk. So it's one of those things that we did. It's just stuff that we did when we were going. So we went north racing. We sold all modified stuff. And who was the first one to buy my modified stuff? Don't get mad at me. Teddy Christopher. Don't get mad at you. I was the first guy to sell him a car. There's a lot of pissed off people. A lot of guys bought bumpers because of you. Chassis, clips, Eddie Flemke, sorry. He was the first car I sold, sorry. Don't get mad at me, don't shoot me. But, his first car was my last car. I think, you still have it? No. God, I thought you saved everything. You can put it in a new house you're building. Is it as big as this? He's getting building a house twice the size of this place. You still got Galante's money. So we go north racing. We go north racing, and I'm having a little tough time. And Eddie, your dad coming. We used to race Thunder Road, 4 or 5 times. You talk about cows. The Milk Bowl. I never was good at Thunder Road. Never did really well. And we raced there 5 times. So it was about a couple weeks before the Milk Bowl, and Eddie was talking to my dad and myself, and he goes, Randy, going up to the Milk Bowl? I said, yeah, I am, Eddie. I hate that place. And he says, why? I just don't like it. Just don't like it. He goes, well, you beat already. I said, why? What do you mean? He goes, you're never going to run good if you don't like a racetrack. I said, okay. I said, how do you change that? He said, I tell you what. He goes, I know Bob. He goes, I'll talk to Bob. I'm not sure if he ever did. He says, but I'm going to have Bob change something on the race car. He said, he'll change the setup of the race car. He goes, I want you to go follow Dave Dion. I said, okay. It's not easy to do. He's pretty quick there. He just find him in practice and follow. I said, okay, I can do that. So, first practice, I'm not sure if Bob changed the car, but I believe that he did, because it didn't drive totally different than it ever had been. And I followed Dave Dion, and I've been to parts on that racetrack that I've never seen before. I was like, oh, okay, this is good. So we're at the driver's meeting, and Dave Moody, who's the voice of, other than Squires, he's the voice of New Hampshire, Vermont. He says, Randy, he says, word has it, you're running pretty good. Maybe, we think we're okay. He goes, so you're going to kiss that cow today? I said, Dave, if I win this race, I'll beat that cow. We were in the race. Dave's in victory lane holding the cow. So I'm not keen on cows either, Ricky. I'll eat a burger though. But it's simply amazing how families are involved in this. My first race car, my dad bought repossessed out of a body shop in New Haven. It was a Fred Rosner car. I see Freddie over here. Our first North car, the North car we won the championships, was a Freddie Rosner car. Freddie's son Wesley worked for me in the seat company when I started the seat company. It's everything. One night my dad called. He goes, "Hey, we got a guy called up, Pete Fiandaca, called up. He's traveling from Long Island to Massachusetts, and he blew his motor up." And I went to machine shop school, and I was in machine shop school in high school. And he says he needed pistons cut because he blew his motor up. He says, go down the junkyard. He says he's stopping by. He wants you to cut pistons for him. So him and his crew chief, Steve Bird, stopped by. So here I am, a kid in high school, cutting pistons for Piandaca and Steve Bird, who later was my crew chief when I won championships in the South in 96 and 97. Dick Moroso and my dad knew each other a long time. Dick Moroso calls me after I'm down south, try to get the job and try to knock on doors. And Dick says, hey, I'll give you 2 races. You want them? Yeah. Oh, hell yeah. Jump in the car and finish second to Earnhardt at Talladega. Finish second the following week to Mark Martin at Darlington. Wow, I got a job for next year. This is cool. Who's my crew chief the following year? Bob Johnson. You know, you can't make this stuff up. I mean, this racing stuff is just so cool. And then to get inducted into the New England Hall of Fame, I mean, this is such an honor. From watching these guys, the other 7-Eleven, Pavaleri, Bob Potter, the guy ain't changed than ever. I mean, the guy's still the same as he was 30 years ago. I mean, this is insane. I looked in the mirror, about 10 years ago, and I seen my dad. I turned around, and he wasn't there. I was like, oh shit, I'm getting old. I said, golly. But it's just such an honor to be here today. We got a bunch of tables here, a bunch of guys that have helped me, have pushed me. You don't realize how much work goes into this stuff. You don't know how much, on the Old North Tour, going from Maine to New Hampshire to St. Air to Cayuga, stopping at the hotels and until my son started racing, and I had to do all that legwork that my mom would do. Hotels and food and golly, it's the behind the scenes that the little knickknacks that go into racing. We miss our mom. We just buried my father-in-law. What a piece of work he was. I mean, it just so the wheels in motion that create this wonderful sport that we are in is fun to see worldwide. I'm out there preaching safety. Here's a quick little story. A guy calls me up. He goes, hey, 1988, I think it was. I wasn't doing a whole lot. Hey, come drive my car in Oxford. And hell yeah. I said, this is a fast race car. So I haul my butt up to Oxford, and I kind of forget that I'm 200 pounds. Okay. So I run to the car with my helmet bag. Well, the guy that gets fired is 150 pounds. And I was like, oh boy. It's like, this is going to be fun. So I kind of push open the seat a little bit, and I practice, and I was like, boy, this thing is fast. I said, but I can't drive it because it's too damn small. The seat's too small. Well, thankfully, it was a double header. It was at Maine. The modifieds were there, and the North cars were there. So I said, okay, thankfully, Jimmy Spencer has 2 modifieds there. So I go see Paul, Eddie, the pretty one. So I said, Eddie, can I take the seat out of the backup car and put it in this North car? He said, yeah, go ahead, no problem. So I unbolt the seat, and I go and I bring it to the North car. I bolt it in the North car, and I finish second. So the modifieds are warming up. Eddie comes across the track. Hey, Lajoie, come on, get your stuff. Why? Just get your stuff. I said, I got to take pictures. No, screw the pictures, come on. So we run across the track. I got my helmet. We're going over. And the modifieds are warming up in the infield or in the pits. I said, Eddie, he goes, come on. So he got the car. He goes, they're paying $600 a start. They ain't got enough cars. Get in. So he shoves me in the window, and I'm putting my helmet on. I'm buckling in. And right before he puts the window net up, I said, Eddie, it doesn't have a seat. He says, they ain't going to check. And he clicked the window net. So what do? Strap my helmet, buckle up, and I'm sitting in a championship car, Hutter motor, sticker tires, and I run about 10 laps. So I'm out there today saying, we have to protect race car drivers from themselves because we're all nuts. So that's the end of the day. I mean, racers, whether it's Kenny Bouchard, Dwight, the King, we're all nuts. It's something that gets in us that when we strap into a vehicle, there's nothing like it. ever. And when you're good at it, it's pretty damn fun. And I'm glad I could do what I did for as long as I did. Hit way too much stuff, but you know, that's fun too sometimes. And Ricky, I had one of those near-death experiences on the ride up here. Stopped at the wrong gas station. Other than that, we're all good. So thank you all. This has been a wonderful day, and we got a good ride home. Thank you.